Welcome back to All the Cars I've Loved Before, carslove.com. This is your podcast, America, World, Planet, Galaxy, Universe, where we talk about the cars that have made you, influenced you, cars that you've owned, everything in and around them. I am continuing to get over illness and sickness here in sunny Florida. Yes, we have pathogens down here. So I started out with strep throat, kicked that, then had a cold, various pathogens moving through my life. I had chicken for lunch. I'm sure I'll have bird flu in the coming days here, but hey, that's not going to stop me. It's not going to stop this show. Good afternoon, Doug, my partner, my co-host. How you doing, pal?
I'm doing great. Great to be back here with you.
Absolutely. He is Doug at carslove.com. I am Christian at carslove.com, sniffling all the way. And let's see, what can we, any housekeeping to get into? As Doug mentioned at the end of the prior episode, depending upon how he feels like slicing and dicing this season in putting together the episodes like a magician does a deck of cards, there's a poll that he has put together. And is that in beta? Is that out on the site yet on carslove.com? Or?
It is. I believe it's carslove.com/vote, but there is also a link at the very top of the page that says
Wonderful.
vote. And so we want people to vote for your favorite episode. When this one comes out, this one will be on there too. You may want to hold your vote till you hear this entire episode because it may be your favorite.
Yeah, and I'm very excited about today's guest. And typically I babble on way too long at this point, but our guest has an episode that she wants to talk about. But before I introduce her, I am going to gently hand the introduction to the outstretched hand of my co-host here, who knows her and is going to introduce her into the discussion. Doug.
Yeah. So our guest today is a Maryland native, I believe. I consider myself a Maryland native, even though I moved here when I was 4. And so we're both Maryland natives. She's got a really great car background, including family. And we're going to get into that. One might say oil and or gasoline is in her veins as well, just like another wonderful guest we had. And Lisa and I came into knowing each other because, and I sound like a broken record here, because of DeLoreans, right? Lisa has a big birthday coming up, and
Yay.
She is a big 80s fan, just like me, and she booked my DeLorean for her 80s birthday party, where I think I'm going to be bringing her, unbeknownst to her friends, and we're going to surprise them at the event where a local 80s cover band that's really good is going to be playing. So I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, here's somebody who's after my own heart, and she's got a DeLorean story too. But with that, Lisa, I hope I didn't tell your whole story, but introduce yourself.
Welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me, Doug and Christian. Yeah, so I am a Maryland native. I have lived on the east side of Baltimore pretty much my entire life. And yeah, I am super excited to have the DeLorean at my birthday party. That is, I think, going to be the most fun, interesting element of it. And after we connected about renting your DeLorean and your DeLorean driving services for that evening, and you turned me on to the podcast, I've had a lot of fun listening. And I really particularly loved the pilot. And I know it sounds kind of cheesy to say that, but it was so much fun to hear the two of you sort of discovering the potential of this topic and your natural curiosity with everybody and their storytelling. And I feel like I myself get really emotionally attached to my cars. I've owned 4 in my lifetime, 2 I've parted ways with, and I cried like a baby when I parted ways with each of them. And I expect to do the same with at least one more in the near future. So definitely a topic that hits home for me.
Full of passion. You are full of passion. Passionate person. You care. Dig it. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, and I think just as a quick teaser, not to take it away, I think Lisa's life began very early on with a Camaro that her mom bought not long after she was born or right before, because that's a very, very good family car, right?
Yeah, perhaps not surprising in East Baltimore, that my mother bought a Camaro shortly after I was born. Vanity plates and everything, a red one. And she drove that for many years and then handed it down to my brother, who abused it. And it didn't last much longer in his hands.
Camaros, great family cars. You put the baby in the hatch. It's fantastic. Yeah.
You lots of sun back there.
Yeah. Well, and for newer listeners, right? Camaro had this Camaro, and all these old rear-wheel drive cars had this great thing in the middle, had this center hump for the transmission tunnel. And Lisa, I'm guessing, I think you said you're one of three, so that with a four-seater car, somebody had to sit in the middle on the hump, right?
Absolutely, and we would fight over who got to sit in the middle because there was no seatbelt there.
And you're always a little higher. You're a few inches higher. It's the commanding heights, isn't it? You see a little better. You can see through the middle, out either window, over brother and sister in the back.
And in the 80s, yeah, seatbelts were an afterthought.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Some of back seats.
We'll just think captive thoughts. We don't need a seatbelt. Now, is this the one that was Patriot Red, Lisa, or is that a different one?
My Camaro was Patriot Red. My mother and brother's was a more traditional tomato red. I'm not sure what the official GM paint color was. Mine was a darker, almost maroon color.
I was going to ask. So Patriot Red sort of bordered on them. And I love that just the clever official paint names they have, right? Midnight Electric Eel Blue, Envious Green, and on and on.
Crazy Chrysler
that's
color.
It. That's another.
That's a Chrysler color from back in the day. Yep. And so Lisa, as you hinted, so your Camaro, the first of many in the family, was your first car.
Yes. So my very first car that I bought when I was 16, didn't even have my license yet. Fun fact, it had been inspected by the used car lot where I bought it on my 16th birthday. That was the date on the inspection certificate. So I thought it was meant to be. It was a 95, pretty base model, but with T-tops in that Patriot Red. And then after a couple of little fender benders, I had a custom paint job on it. We kept the same base color, added a big flake violet pearl, and it was just really beautiful.
Sounds so pretty.
Yeah, I loved that car. It was a part of my identity as a teen, without a doubt. And I still run into people 20 plus years later in the neighborhood, because I still live in the same neighborhood where I went to high school, that will ask me, "Hey, you still got your Camaro?" No, not anymore.
Yeah, I wish I'd kept it, but they take up a lot of space. And you had that one for how long then? Did you say?
I had that car for about 7.5, almost 8 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think you have a great story. How did you earn the money for that car on your 16th birthday?
Making pizza. Worked 2 years at Pizza Hut. Then my store closed and I went to work at Papa John's, which coincidentally is right next door to where I live now, since I'm still in that neighborhood. And making minimum wage or close to it for all of those years, made thousands of pizzas, and socked that money away as fast as I could, and bought that car.
Okay, so we're not going to ask age, but what was minimum wage at your first job?
$4.25 an hour.
Okay, so mine was, I want to say $3.33. I don't know if there's a way. I don't think I kept anything that could confirm that. Doug, what was your first?
It was probably in the $3 to $4.
Yeah, we got to go look that up.
I'm sure it's in the Wayback Machine.
I love when we talk about food on this show, and I know it's about cars, but all I can think of right now is pizza. So did you eat a lot of pizza when you were there, or As soon as the shift was over, you ran screaming and you couldn't look at dough again.
Went to Taco
I
Bell.
ate a lot of pizza at work. I took a lot of pizza home. When you're a teenager and you're making minimum wage and trying to save up as much as you can for a big purchase, you're going to eat whatever's free. And I got creative to take some other ingredients to work with you and mash it together with what they have there.
Like what?
So at Pizza Hut, I'd cook pasta at home and take that in and put it in a pan with sauce and veggies and cheese and throw that through the oven and bake it. Papa John's.
Brilliant.
We figured out you could bake cookies on the conveyor oven to get that slice and bake dough, and they baked up perfectly in that oven.
Oh my gosh. To all the pizzas I've eaten before. That's going to be our Splinter podcast. Sorry. We need to move on, but I love this. Sorry, Doug, you were saying.
No, that's okay. There's a new pizza place in Annapolis, so I'm probably going to be going there tonight.
What's it called?
Timber Pizza. It's a small chain.
Maybe they could sponsor us.
Maybe
we'll work for toppings. Okay.
Yeah, Timber Pizza.
My man.
Wood oven. We'll do a review.
It's
always great to have a new place, and next time you're in town, Christian, we'll try it out with you.
Hit it up.
Such a pizza guy. But back to the cars, right? Mm-hmm. So the Camaro you had for, I think you said 7 years?
Yeah, 7, almost 8 years.
Yep.
It wasn't my daily driver that whole time. It overlapped with my next purchase, which I frequently say was the best $10,767 I ever spent. And that was a 2004 Pontiac Sunfire.
Yay, Pontiac.
It was the stripped down base model, the 1SV. And that's why it was so affordable. And it was electric blue. And
metallic.
Sparkly, really easy to find in a parking lot was great.
Yeah.
Today everything's black, white, gray, and silver. It's really true. Everything looks the same, but a nice neon blue car. Really.
Now, did you pay extra for that color? You said it was base model. Was that an option you added on, or was there a little extra for the paint? Do you remember?
There was not. That stripped down model only came in black, white, silver, and blue. The other colors were reserved for the higher trims. And so I had my choice between those 4 colors, and I picked the blue.
Good choice. There was one, as we were talking before the show, there's one I have seen that exact car, I'm telling you, within the past few months around here, and it's traded in the deep blue metallic flake for the oxidized rust flake over most of the car. But it's still a good-looking car, nice curves and lines, and it's still running. It is still running. And I don't dare say a sharp looking little car. Yeah. And so it you said it ran well, and you had that for a time, didn't you?
I drove that car for 14 years, 180,000 miles on the original clutch. I only retired it because it was totaled. And although it wasn't going to cost much to fix it, I had my eye on the new laws coming that required the backup cameras and all the other features. And I knew that entry-level cars were going to get really expensive. And so I decided it was better to go ahead and replace it than try to kick a couple more years out of it. And it was sad for me to give that car up. And people thought I was crazy that I was that upset and even considering fixing it. But when I think back, that car took me to so many important events in my young adult life. I graduated, went to my first law school classes driving that car, graduated, took the bar exam and got sworn in, bought my first house, first day as a lawyer, and lots of other things in between. And so it was tied to all of those events and memories in my life. And it was such a reliable piece of my life. In that 14 years, I replaced 1 light bulb over the license plate in the back. And I made 1 repair other than basic preventative maintenance. It was just a really efficient, practical, but like you said, still really cute car for a young person to drive.
Well stated. Well stated. Yeah, more than just machines. That's why we say that, you know, every car tells a story. And when we're out and we talk to people about this podcast, even people that wouldn't, I mean, you're obviously a car nut. Just listen to your face is lighting up talking about these things, these memories. But we go meet people at car shows or friends of friends. You got that show, and people just come alive. It's reminiscing, and Doug and I like to talk about this a lot. It's a lot of your story, the person that you are, because for just being a hunk of metal, it's a big investment, and you got every penny out of what you put in that car. $10,767. You know, you had it for a long time. Took you from A to B. Took care of you. A lot of you in that car, other way around.
Yeah, definitely a great investment. And I don't think I realized it at the time. I kind of felt like it was a consolation prize. I'd been driving a Camaro, and now I'm getting this little subcompact, and I was a little salty about it in the beginning, but I knew I needed something better to commute to school. And then after a couple years went by, and I was out of school, and I went to get a mortgage to buy my house. And the mortgage broker said to me, he goes, "Well, what kind of car are you going to buy?" Because he's trying to figure out what I can afford. And I'm like, "What do you mean, what kind of car am I going to buy?" He's like, "You're going to get like a BMW? You're like a lawyer now." And I'm like, "No, my car's fine. Like it ain't broke. I'm not going to fix it." And I did continue to drive that car for many more years after that. And I got a little flack from some people who thought it was maybe not so professional, or it, you know, didn't match the level of success I wanted to project. But at the end of the day, I think anybody whose opinion mattered appreciated the efficiency, and that I was going to drive that car until it died, and that I got my money's worth out of it.
We get that a lot from people who end up bonding with these machines when they sort of least expect it, and it's kind of a lovely thing. And a lot of it is the memories in there. Hey, came from my dad. It came from my brother. This car went through all of my siblings, and I was the last stop. You know, there are ties that bind. That's lovely. Well stated. Thank you.
Yeah, and speaking, if I may, Christian, speaking of which, since you mentioned mom, we mentioned her mom earlier. You just mentioned her dad, or a dad. You know, I'm seeing a theme of GM cars. And before we get on to your replacement Pontiac, there's a family history with GM in your family, and you know how unique. I think we have two parents at minimum, and maybe some relatives that actually worked for GM while you were growing up.
Yeah, that's the case. My mother worked there actually before my time in the 70s, and her husband worked there for decades, retired from there. They both were at Broning Highway, and he wound up moving to Shreveport when that plant opened down there in the early 80s. And so the fact that my mother and then my brother drove the one Camaro, I had one, my sister had one, and then I went on to buy a couple of Pontiacs, and, you know, not to mention the other Chevys and Saturns and Pontiacs within my immediate family. We did, you know, enjoy the family discount that comes with that, but also a little bit of shame if you considered buying anything that wasn't a GM product in those days.
I think your car had a chance of getting beaten up at the GM plant if you came in something else, is my understanding.
Definitely heard those stories.
Yep. My sister worked for Saturn briefly. She also got the family discount on a Saturn sedan number 2, whatever that model was.
SL2.
Yes. Yep. Correct. And she drove that car forever. Yeah. So, did you, just curious, because I think back to my dad was in the computer industry, and so he always knew the latest, greatest thing that was coming or could bring it home. Was there a bit of that in the family, like, hey, this new car is coming out, or this engine is changing over?
Yeah, I definitely remember some talk about new models and things, and particularly He got the HHR when that came out, which was not super popular. That was, Chevy's answer to the PT Cruiser.
Correct.
And he had that. He had special ordered a really high-end Camaro at one point and then had second thoughts about it and didn't take delivery ultimately. And I actually considered taking it, and my good judgment got the better of my desire for a fun car. And I didn't do it, but I thought long and hard about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, funny tidbit about that, because I knew there was some connection. The gentleman, Brian Nesbitt, who designed the HHR, was the former designer, formerly at Chrysler, and he was the guy who designed the PT Cruiser. Kind of seems like a little bit of a ripoff, but he had the timing right on both those cars.
He did. Did he ever?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, so since we're on Pontiac, sorry, this is a very car-centric episode. So we all know Pontiac went down due to the financial crisis, and but that didn't stop you from finding a Pontiac before they went out of business. And hoping you could tell us about that. There's a neat story involved in it as well, timing wise. So I'll let you tell us, Lisa.
Yeah, so I had my eye on the G6 Hardtop Convertible for a while, and just really interested in the hardtop concept because I had the T-Top Camaro, and I still had the T-Top Camaro at this point, and I didn't really want a soft top. And so I'd just been looking at this car and thinking about it and looking at reviews and things. And then the news came out during the recession that GM was going to shed a couple of lines, including Pontiac, at the end of 2009. And that news hit pretty hard right about 12:30. And so I checked local inventory, and I found a dealership not far from here, north of Baltimore in Hunt Valley, had two hardtop convertibles in stock. And I went and looked at them, and they said, well, anything that doesn't get sold by tomorrow is going to the rental lots. GM did a package deal. Everything left just goes to rental because we can't sell anything after 12/31. We're done. We're out of business. It's over. So, bit of a rash decision for me. I usually spend like years deciding to buy something, and I have spreadsheets and lots of information, and I overanalyze it. And by the time I select a car, it's no longer on the market usually. And so I went and bought this 2009 G6 GT hardtop convertible. They had two on the lot. One was red with tan leather interior, and I hated everything about that. I bought the navy blue one with gray cloth interior. I was in my mid-20s at the time, and I thought that a midlife crisis would warrant a red convertible, but a quarter-life crisis would warrant a blue convertible.
Way ahead of schedule. Yeah, good work.
And so I bought that in the middle of winter on 12/31, literally the last day I could. And I remember taking it for a test drive. Just a couple weeks later, a friend's birthday came up, and I bundled myself all up in a coat and hat and scarf, and I'm going to put the top down to drive, 25 minutes away for dinner. And it beeped at me, and the radio displayed, "Top not allowed, it's too cold."
Oh, no, really?
And so the car has some limitations. It won't let you put the top up and down too quickly. It won't let you operate it when it's too cold because it wants to protect those delicate mechanisms in the back.
Yeah, absolutely.
And lubricants get gummy in the cold.
Yeah.
So that was my first, it's a little deflating, but that was my first time really driving the car after I brought it home. And so I've still got that 15 years later. And I don't drive it every day. It's my to and from the beach car. It's my road trip car. It's very comfortable. It's a very smooth ride. It's got a decent sized V6 in it, although it's an automatic, and I don't love driving automatics. It is just a very comfortable ride.
Now, It's not a 2009 and it's not a 2010, is it?
No, so they had to make 2009 and a halves because the next model year was rolling out, but then they decided not to exist in the next year.
Exactly.
So there's a small pocket of Pontiacs that are 2009.5.
Just like the 64 and a half Mustangs.
That's it. Same thing.
Yeah. That's unique. Not something I knew. Rest in peace, Pontiac. But now, people like Lisa and Christian are keeping it going.
We do our best. We do our best. Well, and I can't. So much to get to with Lisa, but where's the auction story? Are we about ready for that in the chronology of your life, or is that a little bit later?
So that was actually right around the time I bought the G6. I don't know if it was shortly before or shortly after, but it was in that time frame. I attended a charity auction. Specifically, it was Community College of Baltimore County, did their big annual gala event, and they heavily themed their events. That year was like a spy theme. And they have some relationship with a car collector and convinced him to donate one of his cars to the event to auction off. And they specifically said, we want the DeLorean. And he ponied up the DeLorean. And so ever the 80s fan, I am sitting there at this charity event where they're encouraging you to bid and spend money. And I'm having a great time and the open bar is flowing. And I have great affinity for CCC because I'm an alum of the institution. And I think back at that time, I was also teaching there. I did teach there for a few years, and I think that was the same time frame. And so when the DeLorean goes up for auction, I just start bidding and keep bidding and keep bidding.
What did it start at? Do you remember what the bidding started at?
I think they started it at like $8 or $9 grand.
Okay.
And I remember going at least up to 14. I think I probably went up to like 20 before my sense caught up with me.
That was my next question.
The only reason I had 20 grand sitting in my bank account is because I was saving up to buy a new roof that I desperately needed because my shingles were blowing off. And the roof was probably a better investment than the DeLorean at the end of the day. Although I couldn't help but think that I would win every costume contest I ever went to.
100%.
Yeah, you just do a Back to the Future theme. You show up in the DeLorean and you take your prize.
What did it go for? What was the winning bid? Do you remember? Were you sober?
Were you not exactly. Awake? I was awake. I'd had a few. I was probably hitting up the dessert buffet at that point, and I want to say it sold for about 27 grand.
Okay, so not close. All right, good deal.
Yeah, I think the roof was a good choice. I think being a DeLorean owner, I can imagine that the upkeep on that car is difficult. I can imagine that the owner collector was probably like, yeah, I will get rid of that car. I'm tired of fixing it.
Yeah, I get excited over an eBay auction, for a couple of baseball cards. I can't imagine a car, be flesh and blood, sit there.
That would be be dangerous.
That's high anxiety. Good stuff.
Yeah, and once you start bidding, the people at your table, even if you don't know them, they start egging you on. And it gets very heated, and it's fun. And then you want to win just because you don't want someone else to get the thing you want.
Hard to disengage. I would think that it would be hard to disengage when you're that deep in it, especially if you're an excitable person and it's something that you've wanted for some time. Well, good on you. Good on you.
Yes.
So I'm glad that I've met Doug now, and he can fulfill my occasional DeLorean need without having to actually own one myself.
Think of all the money he saved you. Oh my gosh.
You have no idea.
Yeah, Doug, you need to go trade that car in on a roof, I think. But
yeah, I got a new roof a couple of years ago, so I'm good to go.
Oh, okay.
It was right around the time I bought the car, too. That doesn't make sense. So, with that, as we're coming towards the end, Lisa, it sounds like you've done a lot for your community. You mentioned teaching at the community college and helping with that auction. Fortunately, not getting stuck with anything. But what is a cause that's important to you that you'd like to share with our listenership?
So I am very active in my local Elks Lodge, and many people are familiar with the Elks. Maybe their dad or their grandpa was a member, but not everybody is. It's that BPOE sign you see on an old building in your neighborhood, the Benevolent Protective Order of the Elks. We've been around for a very, very long time. My particular lodge has been around since 1899, so it is our 125th year in the same building, right in the heart of Towson, right off the circle. And we have a couple national focuses in terms of philanthropy and volunteerism. The top one is by far veterans, and that is what my lodge focuses on. We also hand out some scholarships and do some other community things, but we raise money for different veterans causes, volunteer at the VA hospitals. We bring a group of vets out for a big dinner around Thanksgiving every year and serve them a meal and throw money at them through a bingo game is the fun way to do it. And then we send them home with a police escort, which they just love. They get on their little buses back to their old age homes, and the police take them with lights and sirens on. It's great. But it's just it's a great civic fraternal organization that engages in a lot of different ways in the community. And I find that it's a convenient way to be a volunteer. Lots of events, sign up for what works for you, sign up for what you enjoy, and then also make friends and experience some camaraderie. We've got parties and events throughout the year as well. And it's an interesting mix of people.
Well, thank you for sharing. Now I know a little more about the Elks because I've seen that BPOE around where I live in Maryland, but didn't know too much about it, minus a veteran component. And thank you for helping the veterans and the
absolutely
senior citizens as well.
Yeah, they're an important part of our local communities, and I think that sometimes they get a little overlooked, and a lot of their organizations, like the American Legions and BFWs, are kind of fading away over time. So it helps when other organizations step up to support them.
Excellent.
Yep, for sure.
Well, thank you for that, Lisa. Well, Lisa, I got to tell you, I have heard of you for some time. I've been really looking forward to meeting you, and this was just a real treat for me. So I want to thank you for taking the time and being a friend of the show, being a fantastic guest. And we promised that we would get you out of here on time. And there is so much more to talk about, but hey, there's always another podcast. What do you think, Doug?
Yeah, I think we should thank Lisa for her time, her energy, her interest,
her service, her community service, and
it's her service. And when she was asking me about the DeLorean, it just popped in my head. Hey, here's a car person. I should mention the podcast. Podcast was very new then, and
glad we got her.
It really was not to sound
serendipitous, fortuitous, and some other us.
Thank you. Exactly.
You got it.
Yep. It really helped see the connection there, and the cars and people, and you could be talking to anybody, and I have a podcast.
Such a good point. Such a good point. Yeah. Good stuff, Doug. Thank you again, Lisa. Thank you to our audience. You know how to get a hold of us. carslove.com. Doug at carslove.com. Christian at carslove.com. Lisa, thank you again. It was a pleasure.
It was great meeting you guys. Thanks for having me today.
Lisa. Yep.
Excellent.
Can't wait till October.
Yeah, look forward to seeing you in the DeLorean.
Yeah.
All right. Have a great night. We'll talk soon. Yep. See you next time.
Right.
Carslove.com. To all the cars I've loved before, where every car tells a story. Happy birthday, Lisa.